Yes, it's me again. A double upload today. Their trade deadline happened today, and I didn't really think I was gonna make a video about it. Obviously, the big news was the Mike Clevinger trade to the San Diego Padres. That is the headline story of the entire trade deadline because that was the one huge name that got moved, and especially to the team that he went to, being the San Diego Padres, a team that I talked about a little bit last week with the whole Fernando Tatis Jr. 3-0 swinging drama slash controversy. But I had said that, you know what, the Padres, they got off to a really good start, then they started struggling and got back on another winning streak. So every game is crucial for the Padres, especially in this expanded playoffs. Just getting second place guarantees you a spot in the postseason, and you know that you have the Dodgers in your division, and the Dodgers are clicking on all cylinders right now. So you know that they pretty much have first place locked up. So you try to do what you can to get to second place, be ahead of the Diamondbacks, who were big time sellers in this deadline, got rid of a lot of their pitchers, and Starling Marte going to the Mets rivals, Miami Marlins. You have the Rockies, who have been struggling lately, although they made the move for Kevin Pillar, try to help up their outfield, try to help out their team. That definitely was a very solid move by Colorado right there. Kevin Pillar is a very underrated player, in my opinion. But I think that the Padres, they did what they had to do. They went for it all. They made some more trades last night, getting more catcher depth, was Austin Nola or Jason Castro. They got rid of a lot of prospects while they were at it, but the thing that the Padres have in their advantage is that they have so many good prospects that they were able to make these trades for the Clevinger and all these other pieces, get some relief pitchers also from Seattle. And they didn't have to get rid of their top guys. So that really was the nice thing that San Diego was able to do. They also made a trade for Mitch Moreland. So it's hard to keep up with just how many moves the Padres did make within the past couple of days leading into this trade deadline. And, you make the Clevenger deal, and that was a big deal, but I didn't really think that around the league there was too many, more crazy trades that I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make another video about this before I have to go to work. But when the Mets got involved and the Mets made a couple moves, I said, okay, now I'm hopping on. Now we're going to talk about some MLB trades, and we'll go to the Mets right away. But they get Robinson Chirinos, which was the first thing that we saw after the report came out that the Mets had traded Kevin Smith to the Baltimore Orioles. And when I saw Mets traded Smith to the Orioles, I was already, a red flag went up. I said, oh, come on now. What are we doing here? Because Kevin Smith, we have not seen him really pitch on the major league level yet. So we want to see what we have there. And we were going to need Kevin Smith because here's the thing. They showed it. Mets have to be announced Tuesday, to be announced Wednesday, and to be announced Thursday as the starting rotation coming up this week. So we know that the Mets are having a lot of trouble as far as starting pitchers are concerned with what happened over the weekend, having two doubleheaders, having no off days. You have Oswald who got hurt. You DFA Lockett because you had to make room to move people up and send people down. And, maybe Franklin Kilame is going to make a start this week. He's looked in his outings, all like kind of good but not great. So he's probably going to end up making a start this week against the Baltimore Orioles. But still, you need that depth. And I was like, oh my gosh, are the Mets still doing this? The Mets are getting rid of more depth on their organization, especially pitching, when you know that you need pitchers this year and you need pitchers going forward. I mean, when the Mets first made that deal, I tweeted, I was like, they're just making things harder. If Cohen does take over, they're making it harder for him to really, get this thing going, because if you have no pitching depth and you have no pitching prospects, you have no farm system, money can only do so much. There's only so many free agents out there that you could sign. If you keep trading away young pitchers for, backup catchers and mediocre relievers and backup outfielders, you're leaving yourself with nothing. You're not like the San Diego Padres where you get rid of prospects but still have these amazing ones that are going to come help your team in the future. The Mets aren't in that position anymore. They've traded away so many prospects for all these different deals, whichever deal you want to throw at me, and none of them have really worked out so far other than J.D. Davis. Robinson Cano is having a good year. Edwin Diaz, we talked about him earlier today, the Mets-Yankees video. If you didn't see it, I posted that earlier today. We talked about Diaz having the struggles closing out games, especially when there are runners on base. I mean, Diaz has got to come in with the bases empty. That's just, off to the side. And when the Mets had this terrible performance that they did today against the Miami Marlins, where they lose a start of Jacob deGrom against the Marlins, you lose that start, combined with all the other crap that's happened this season. I mean, what more is there really left to do? I was like, you know what? If the Mets lost this game, just forget it. Don't even make any moves. Don't make things worse. Don't trade prospects. Just let it go and look forward to the future. I mean, that's the way I am right now. I'm just just done with this season, with the way things have gone, and it just continues to pile up. And it just has been, obviously we've said it, extremely frustrating. And for me, now I want to talk about all these other trades that happened around baseball, because it has gotten so bad with the Mets right now that I can't really be making videos on them anymore. I mean, the channel just isn't going to grow. I don't think that's what the people want to see. So what I need from anyone watching this is I need in the comment section below, what kind of videos do you want to see, especially sports related? Do you want trade deadline recaps? Do you want recaps of games? Do you want predictions? Do you want, flashbacks? I mean, like, what kind of content would you be interested to look for? You're like, you know what? That's something I want to see, and I bet a bunch of other people want to see. Let me know what that is, because I'm definitely willing to bring that to the channel just to, have this thing grow a little more and have to talk about the crummy Mets all the time, because I'm getting really tired of it. Like I said, I don't want to watch the games anymore. So if we could grow the channel a different way that involves not having to deal with the Mets, not having to worry about them or watch them anymore, that would be great for me. The other moves that the Mets made, so it was kind of weird the way it got reported, where you see Kevin Smith gets traded and you see that the Mets got Robinson Chirinos, but Chirinos doesn't play for the Orioles. The Mets made two deals. The one was trading Kevin Smith to the Orioles for Miguel Castro, a reliever right-handed from the Baltimore Orioles, who has not had a great year, ERA in the 4, so he's not a lockdown, lights-out reliever. Plays in a hitter-friendly ballpark, obviously Camden Yards. Plays in a pretty tough division. You got the Yankees, you got the Rays, you have the Blue Jays, who, they made some moves getting Jonathan VR, which we saw during the game. VR gets scratched, pinch hit for John Birdie, so we knew that VR was on the move. He ends up going to Toronto, fill in for Bo Bichette while he's hurt right now. So, well, the Orioles, I mean, so it's kind of tough to judge their pitchers, but we don't really see Miguel Castro coming in and being the setup man, filling in for Dylan Betances nicely, potentially taking Edwin Diaz's job. That's not going to happen. Miguel Castro is not that caliber of a pitcher, so at least he is somebody. At least it is a major league reliever, kinda. It's better than the Drew Smith or the Gagnon or the Paul Sewald or the Daniel Zamora. It's better than that. And it's probably better than Hunter Strickland, too, because I said the same thing when the Mets got Strickland. At least he's better than those other minor league relievers, but he's been awful. So we'll see what ends up happening with Miguel Castro. At least it's something for the bullpen, because the Mets do need something, especially with the Betances injury and just how tired everybody is. You think of Jared Hughes having to work 3 days in a row. A lot of guys had to pitch a lot of innings in all these doubleheaders. And now just going forward, this Marlins game and the Orioles games, just the schedule going forward, the Mets don't have off days. So pitchers are going to pitch a lot, and they're going to have to pitch a lot of days in a row, a lot of innings. You're going to need other guys to eat up some innings. So the Miguel Castro move, it's pretty good, but I don't love giving up Kevin Smith. I really don't, because like I said, I'm kind of just over this season at this point. I don't want to lose more prospects going forward. I don't want to lose more depth going forward, because when, let's just say, Steve Cohen takes over and makes nice moves, he signs Real Muto, he signed other relievers that may be available. Maybe George Springer. I'm very 50-50 on him, honestly. He's getting older, not as good. Obviously, the whole Astro stuff came out. He is a little inconsistent, so I'm kind of on the fence about George Springer. I would like to get a younger, big-time center fielder, and they're just so hard to come by. I mean, the ones that are out there, they're not coming. Like, teams covet them, and they would not just be willing to give them up, cheap or let them walk away in free agency. So I do think that would be pretty tough for the Mets to pull off as far as getting a two-way center fielder, which they really do need. And obviously, they need a two-way catcher. And we had heard going into this, deadline that the Mets are looking at catcher. The guy that kept coming up was Christian Vasquez of the Boston Red Sox, who we know well as Met fans. When the Mets had their series against the Red Sox, Vasquez was hitting home run after home run after home run. And that is not the kind of player that Christian Vasquez is. He is not a walking, talking home run. After that Mets series, has not been the same player. Before that Mets series, was not that player. Christian Vasquez is not this amazing hitter. Good defender and a pretty good catcher, but he's not the guy going forward that is going to take over for Ramos and is really going to give you the Mets that stable two-way catcher that they desperately need. Christian Vasquez is not that guy. And we saw they were looking at some other people, maybe Austin Hedges, who had just gotten traded by the Padres, with all the deals that they've made. I don't love Hedges. I know he's really good defensively, but the Mets need two-way. They need definitely a better defensive catcher, but also somebody that can hit. The Mets definitely need someone who can do both, and Austin Hedges is not that guy. So the Mets do make a move for catcher eventually at the end of the deadline after 4 o'clock, and they get Robinson Chirinos from the Texas Rangers. Now, Chirinos is an older guy, high 30s, a veteran, all that stuff, pretty good defensively, good clubhouse, yada, yada, yada. The guy's batting 119. All right, so Robinson Chirinos is not going to come in and start over Wilson Ramos and, give the Mets a really effective catcher, productive catcher. He's going to be better defensively than Ramos. That isn't saying too much. Now, the problem that I have with Chirinos is I've been saying, I said in the video earlier, but no more Ali Sanchez, no more this guy, no more that guy. I mean, we have seen now the past few years this long list of non-two-way catchers that the Mets continue to use, whether it is Kevin Plawecki, whether it is Tomas Nido, whether it is Devin Mesoraco, Ali Sanchez. I mean, you could just go on and on with all these different catchers. The Mets, Rene Rivera, the Mets have used that just aren't good two-way catchers. And Robinson Chirinos coming in here as a 119 average hitter is only going to add to that list. So as bad as Ali Sanchez has been, and he's been really, really bad in his plate appearances that he's had to fill in while Tomas Nido, of course, got the COVID. So having Sanchez in there, he has not done well at all. Chirinos isn't going to come in and do much better. That's what really frustrates me. That doesn't solve the Mets' backup catcher problem. When Ramos is not catching, the Mets are still not going to have a catcher that could give you some decent offense. That still is not going to happen with this trade of Robinson Chirinos. Then, the big move, the one that really just sent me over the edge and said, oh my God, you got to be kidding me, was the Mets also getting Todd Frazier along with Chirinos from the Texas Rangers. Now, obviously, as Met fans, we know plenty about Todd Frazier, having him for 2 years and having his inconsistencies. We know exactly what Todd Frazier is. An average defender, a all-or-nothing home run hitter, very low average, high strikeout, good clubhouse guy. That is what Todd Frazier is. And I think the reason the Mets brought in Todd Frazier is two reasons. Number one, there is some speculation about J.D. Davis. Him leaving the second game yesterday and not playing today shows that his hip is definitely bothering him after getting hit on that hip from a pitch from Aroldis Chapman. So there's obviously something going on with J.D. However, that does not mean that the Mets don't have anyone else that could play third base. You have Jeff McNeil, you can move over to third base. You can start Robbie Cano at second base every day. He has made it abundantly clear that he does not like DHing. Cano is not a good defensive second baseman, but I also don't want Robbie Cano to all of a sudden become unhappy. I want him to keep swinging the bat well. So if we have to put Cano at second and put Jeff at third base for the time being, I'm fine with that. If we have to put Luis Guillorme at third base, I'm really fine with that because I've been clamoring over and over, Luis Guillorme needs to play more. Luis Guillorme needs to play more. He played today, he got a hit. So, again, Luis Guillorme needs to be playing so he can play third base. So, you still don't need Todd Frazier. You know, the golden prodigy, Andres Gimenez, he could also play third base. Even though I'm not crazy about Gimenez, you don't need Todd Frazier. You don't need to get another person to play third base. You have plenty of players that still can do it. So it's not to bring him in for that because Todd Frazier still is not having a good year. He's batting in the 240s with only 7 RBIs. So it's not even like Todd Frazier's having this, big-time offensive year and he's swinging a hot bat. That isn't even the case. I think Todd Frazier's brought in here for the morale for the clubhouse because you look at what's going on with the Mets right now and the way they continue to struggle with getting runners in, the fact that they're continuing to press, there's a lot of somber face. We see McNeil and Alonso throw big fits when they mess up, when they have runners on base and they strike out or they pop up or whatever. I think Todd Frazier is going to be brought in here to relax the young guys. Tell Alonso, tell McNeil, you know what, calm down, just focus, do this and that, and just get these guys to, be comfortable and be able to be the players that they are when the bases are empty. I think Todd Frazier is going to come here to help with that as far as just clubhouse morale and not let things get out of hand, because now that the Mets are 5 games under 500 and they lost this game to the Marlins with DeGrom on the mound, things are in a really, really bad direction, and they're just hoping that Todd Frazier could just keep the team from completely packing it in and just giving up. They want him just to boost the morale so that these players still are motivated and still want to compete. That isn't the way things should be. I think that is why you would do it. That's the only logical explanation I can think of. Because if you mean to tell me that Todd Frazier is going to be making a lot of starts because J.D. Davis is out, I say the Mets have a huge problem if that's the case. Because you really do not want to see Todd Frazier out there a lot because we know that he's just not very good offensively. He's super slow. His defense isn't tremendous. So I really don't want to see Todd Frazier out there again because I was kind of relieved to not have to see him anymore because I saw him for 2 years striking out with the bases loaded and constantly messing up and just being all or nothing, and he would hit 1 home run every 3 weeks, and we're like, oh my gosh, Todd Frazier. But I've never been a crazy fan of him. And what also bothers me is that we do not have an exact idea of what the Mets have given up for Chirinos and Todd Frazier, which was concerning me the most. Because we know that the Mets gave up Kevin Smith just for Miguel Castro. So what did they give up for Chirinos and Todd Frazier? Because I guarantee you the Mets didn't get them for free. So I need to know what they gave up so that we could really, really evaluate this deal and know, did the Mets overpay? Did they give up more prospects, particularly more pitching prospects? Because if they did, then this trade is even worse. Because no matter what, the only reason why you would make trades right now is because you still want to make the postseason. This still is a division and it still is a playoff setting where you still can make a run at even though you've been off to a bad start. And I just don't think that none of these guys, Castro, Chirinos, or Frazier, put you over the top, and are those moves that would really fix some of the problems that you've had that could correct you and get you over 500. I really don't think that's the case with these particular players. I think Clevinger could fill into that role of being an ace, being ahead of Paddock, being ahead of Lamet, or Zach Davies, or Garrett Richards. I think that he does a really good job of that. We know this kind of stuff that Clevinger has had. He was having a really good season prior to the whole Zach Plesac drama when him and Plesac went out and it was against protocols, and him and the Indians got in a big argument. The Indians had to send them both down, and just the tension in the locker room was not good. So it made sense why Cleveland moved Clevinger. They've had some prospects come in and step up. McKenzie, obviously, Shane Bieber's been having a great year. So Cleveland, even though they trade Kluber and they trade Bauer and now they trade Clevinger, they still have a way of putting together really good starting performances, which definitely is very impressive by Cleveland. And right now, they're first place in the American League Central, and they'll definitely finish, I want to say, at least second place unless the White Sox make a big run at. That's one of my biggest surprises of the trade deadline. You're talking about teams that were going to be buyers. So obviously the Padres, because they've been hot lately. I really thought the White Sox were going to do something because they have been playing well recently, and you're figuring, why not go get some more? You know what I mean? After Giolito has a nice no-hitter, followed by a good starting performance by Dallas Keuchel, obviously, you have a good lineup. You have Grandal, you have Abreu, you have Tim Anderson, you have Yohan Moncada, you have Luis Robert. You have Nomar Mazara, you have Eloy Jimenez, you have Edwin Encarnacion. The White Sox have a really, really solid team. So you think that you would try to add somebody else, whether it is someone in the lineup, maybe more bullpen help, maybe another starting pitcher. I thought Lance Lynn, I think the White Sox really could have went after him because obviously Lynn was on the block. The Rangers are not going anywhere right now, and Lance Lynn doesn't have any, time remaining as far as like a long contract going forward where you'd have to pay him year after year after year. Lynn's having a really good year right now, so I thought that would have been the perfect fit for the Chicago White Sox because he obviously was available, but Chicago didn't make any moves, and I thought that was surprising to me. And for Cleveland, with trading away Clevinger, they got to be careful now because Minnesota could easily win that division. And if the White Sox stay hot and, these players that the Indians brought in, they don't pan out well, who knows? Maybe the White Sox take the second spot in the American League Central, and then the Cleveland Indians find themselves at risk of missing the playoffs. And if they do, all of a sudden, maybe somebody like Francisco Lindor could be on the trade block. So I think Cleveland is in a very, very tough spot right now. You look at the players that Cleveland got. They get, Josh Naylor. They get Kale Contrail. They get Austin Hedges, Gabriel Arias, Joey Cantallo, and Owen Miller. Now, the guys that stand out is Naylor. He's more of a power, all-or-nothing bat. Hedges, we talked about before with the Mets. Not a good offensive player. He is defensive first. You already have Roberto Perez, so he kind of, they're very similar players, so I don't really love that part of the trade for Cleveland. But the big thing was they wanted to get some prospects. So getting Gabriel Arias, that definitely was nice. And getting some of these other pitchers like Quantrill or Cancelo. You want to continue to build up your prospects and continue to have a good farm system of pitching because since Cleveland makes so many pitching moves, the way they could call up young pitchers and have them be successful, you want to continue that. And I think that's exactly what they were going for in this deal with the Padres. And the Padres, they also get Greg Allen, who is a good defensive outfielder. Obviously, they had got rid of Juan Lagares, who now the Mets have gotten rid of. So you always want to have some good outfield defense. Nice little, backup person to have on your bench. So I think Greg Allen is a nice little fit for the Padres. They're not going to ask much out of him because the lineup has been doing so well recently. That's how they became the Slam Diego Padres. We're having so many guys step up, whether it is Tatis Jr., who's making a run at MVP, whether it is Manny Machado, who's having a nice bounce back year. I've talked a lot about Manny and how I think he's very underappreciated, especially when MLB did the top 100 ratings. I said, you know what? Machado still is a really good player in this league, and he's proving that to you this year. Eric Hosmer is having a bounce back for the San Diego Padres after they gave him a big contract. Didn't look like it was working out very well, but Hosmer definitely has come around, so that's good to see for San Diego. And I think, adding Clevinger, this team is just getting stronger. Like I said, they made other moves. They improved their bullpen even more when they already had a good bullpen to begin with. Getting rid of Hedges and bringing in some more catchers that give you more offense, so San Diego's offense is going to be even better. I really think that the Padres are in great position right now and obviously have guaranteed themselves a playoff berth with the way this playoffs is set up right now. So that definitely was a very interesting deal for Cleveland and for San Diego. Colorado Rockies also getting Michael Givens. I think that was a very big move for them because we know at Colorado, they're going to score runs, obviously with Arenado, with Trevor Story, with Daniel Murphy, the Charlie Blackmon. The Rockies have a lot of guys that could help you score runs. And in Coors Field, you're going to score runs. So the tough part is how do you prevent the other team from not scoring more runs than you did? And it's going to come down to the bullpen for Colorado. When was the last time the Rockies had a good bullpen? Probably never. So you have to add somebody like Michael Givens, who isn't amazing. He's not lights out, but he is pretty good. And you'd have to at least try to make your bullpen a little better, which is what Colorado did right there. And I think that was a really good move for them because, they had to give something. And they didn't give up all too much to get him, you know what I mean? So I think that was a really nice move for them. Obviously for Baltimore, the Orioles have been bad for a really long time, and it looks like they're going to continue to be bad. So you might as well trade the little bit of talent that you do have left because it's not like you're going to win many games. So you might as well get all the young talent that you can and just hope that some of these guys could pan out to be really good players. That's the only way it makes sense for Baltimore. Some of the other moves, the Cubs, they were pretty active, and I think that was good to see a team that's in first place grip there, and they're continuing making moves. Adding Jose Martinez from the Tampa Bay Rays, I think that was a nice little move, make him a DH. Jose Martinez is not going to play the field because he definitely has his trouble out there, but he's a tough out, you know what I mean? He's a guy that he'll fight off some tough pitches, he'll put the ball in play, and he gives you some offense. So I think that is a nice move for the Cubs. He definitely is a Rays kind of player, being a tough out. The Rays pride themselves on having a whole lineup full of tough outs. So I think that was a pretty nice move for the Cubs. And he didn't have to give up too much to get him, you know what I mean? So it's two players to be named later. So you can't do much better than that. It wasn't like you gave up any well-known prospects because anytime you do that, you know that you made yourself a pretty good deal. Nothing crazy. The Cubs, they're going to win the division regardless, but anytime you can make your team a little better, why not? Because the Cubs are not favorites to win the World Series, so you got to do these little things that make your team just a smally better. And they made other moves too. They added some pitchers, which also, like we know, it's really important, especially in this short season. We've seen so many pitchers get hurt across all of baseball. It makes sense why the Cubs would want to add more arms. So I think that also was another nice move from the Chicago Cubs. We'll talk about another pitching move, the Atlanta Braves getting Tommy Milone. They gave up a couple players to be named later for Tommy Milone, and Milone is not a great pitcher, but you know what? Again, you need the depth. With Mike Soroka out, with the Braves, they've had to have guys called up from the minor leagues to make their major league debuts. Guys that they didn't really expect to pitch. Kyle Wright. We saw another pitcher make his debut for the Braves against the Yankees last week. So Atlanta's had to make a lot of moves recently. So you definitely could see why they want to get Tommy Milone. He did not pitch great in his first outing as a member of the Braves. They threw him right into the fire. So that was interesting right there. But I do understand why Atlanta made that move. Nothing crazy, but it was a nice little solid move. Next move, we'll go back to the Padres. Getting Trevor Rosenthal. Again, for nothing crazy, I think that was a great move by them. Again, you already have a strong bullpen. Guys like Emilio Pagan, Kirby Yates. You had Trevor Rosenthal, who's having a pretty good year with Kansas City. Obviously, Kansas City is going nowhere, so you have to capitalize on a guy who's having a good year. San Diego, again, they just made themselves even tougher. I think they're tough in a 3-game series or any series for that matter. So I think San Diego has put themselves, again, just in a really good position. They made a lot of solid moves, adding Mitch Moreland. So, you know what? There's a lot of good stuff like that. We'll throw in some other little ones. The White Sox, they did make a move getting Jarrod Dyson on August 28th. And Dyson isn't going to be a major difference maker. He's not going to be a difference between them, finishing above the Indians or the Twins. But having some speed and some defense off the bench, like I said with the Padres, getting an outfielder like Greg Allen, it makes sense why you would do that. So that's why the White Sox went ahead and got Jarrod Dyson. They were having Luis Robert for center field, but you want to be able to handle the corner outfield as well as far as defense is concerned. So I think that Jarrod Dyson definitely makes a ton of sense. Also, the Oakland A's getting Tommy La Stella from the Angels. I think that was a nice move from Oakland. They've had a surprisingly really good year. And the reason why I've been surprised by the Oakland A's is not because they have a good team. I knew Oakland has a good team. But that they'd be this good without making any major moves in the offseason. You know what? Like I said on Team Left Jab a couple weeks ago, the Athletics are running out the same bunch of guys. So they're still led by Marcus Semien, Matt Chapman, Matt Olson, Ramon Laureano. It's the same guy. Chris Davis, Stephen Piscotty. They're the same guys that are out there as last year. Sean Manaea is your starting pitcher. The same bullpen with Liam Hendricks closing the door. So the Athletics, they have the same exact team, but they've just gotten off to a really good start this year and have won a lot of games. So you had somebody like Tommy La Stella who gives you versatility around the infield. He's a tough bat. He puts the ball in play. You got to love having Tommy La Stella if you are a team that, you just want to keep yourselves in the playoffs. In case, let's say Simeon's out for a game or two, or you want to give somebody a day off, just putting Tommy La Stella out there, you'd be surprised how much a difference it makes throughout the course of a regular season, especially one like this with very few off days. With the Athletics, they've had a couple games postponed this week because of the positive test, and they haven't been able to play the Astros. So now the Athletics can have a lot of doubleheaders, no days off. they're going to need guys to fill in. So I think that Tommy La Stella was a very nice deal from Oakland. And again, another one of these little trades, you didn't have to give up too much. That's why I was very on the fence about making this video, because other than the Clevinger, there was no deal that was like, oh my gosh, just put this team over the top. This team is way different today than they were yesterday. That's not the case. These are solid moves. La Stella and Gerard Dyson and Michael Givens and Mitch Moreland, Trevor Rosenthal, these are nice moves. But these aren't crazy moves. These aren't star players, like I said, that really change the standings in a division. But we'll continue with some of the other moves that were made throughout the course of this trade deadline weekend. So many teams are in it. When you have expanded playoffs, everybody feels like they have a chance, so you might as well take your shot. It's interesting that the teams that gave away players, the Royals, the Orioles, the Pirates, teams like that, they're the ones that are completely out of it. But these other teams, the White Sox, the A's, the Padres, they're all of them are in it. So it makes sense why they'd want to make some more moves. I think the Oakland A's getting Mike Minor was a really, really nice addition, because Mike Minor is a solid starting pitcher. Not an ace, not a number 2 pitcher, but he will get the job done. You know what? You want to keep yourself competitive, because when you have a lineup like Oakland and you have a bullpen like Oakland, you want to have some starting pitching as well throughout the course of a playoff series. We haven't seen Oakland in a series yet because they always get eliminated in the wild card game. So it's always just Sean Manaea or a bullpen game. That's all the Athletics really have as far as starting pitching is concerned that they feel reliable with. So I think adding Mike Minor as a nice little guy to add onto the rotation, that's a big move for Oakland. And once again, players to be named later. So you're getting these solid major league players without having to give up much. Another pitching move, the Toronto Blue Jays, they were very aggressive in this deadline. And I like it because they're right behind the Yankees. This series for the Yankees is very important where they're facing the Tampa Bay Rays, because the Blue Jays are right behind them. And I think the Blue Jays, they got something going. You know what? This young talent has worked out very well for them. They're obviously waiting for Bo Bichette to come back. That's why they made the trade for VR. Obviously, you have Kevin Biggio, you have Gurriel, you have Vlad Guerrero Jr. You know what I mean? The Blue Jays, they have a lot of talent on this team. And adding a pitcher like Robbie Ray, who, despite his walk troubles, he still can get the job done. He still strikes out a lot of batters. Robbie Ray makes Toronto much better today than they were yesterday. And that's what you're looking to do out of these kind of trades. And, once again, they give up Travis Bergen. So you didn't give up a lot to get a pretty good pitcher in Robbie Ray. So I did like that. Now, the Starling Marte deal for Miami was very weird. I have to be honest with you, because once VR got traded, I was like, all right, you know what? The Marlins, even though they've had a good year, you don't expect them to go that far. So I don't think they're really going to go crazy and make a big-time deal as far as buyers are concerned. But you had somebody like Starling Marte, who was the best bat available. I mean, most of the big-time targets that are out there this particular deadline, it was pitching. It wasn't really offense. But they were to get Starling Marte, but they gave up a little bit to get him. Getting rid of Caleb Smith, who a lot of people like, pretty good starting pitcher. You give up Humberto Mejia, who obviously the Mets have had him pitch against them, and he's pitched pretty well. As inconsistent as the Mets may be, he still can give you some innings. So I think those were two, pretty good arms that you got rid of. And again, this year pitching is just so important because you have to make innings happen. Players, when you think about it, players could play day after day after day after day. They're going to need off days eventually, but when it comes to starting pitching, it's only once every 5 days. So when you have doubleheaders and you have rains out, you're going to need other players to pitch. And when you don't have Caleb Smith and Humberto Mejia, and you got rid of Jonathan VR to add Marte, Marte is nice. Don't get me wrong. I'm not crazy about him. I don't think he's an amazing player. He's a solid player, but I don't think he's going to be the difference maker between the Marlins maybe making and missing the playoffs. I think that having the pitching is just very valuable, and we'll see what kind of player Marte ends up being for the Marlins. I'm surprised how much of sellers the Arizona Diamondbacks were. I know the Diamondbacks have struggled, lately, but I still think they have a shot. In this expanded playoffs, everybody has a shot. And I'm surprised that a team like Arizona, after they had made a trade for Marte just this past offseason, already traded him away. I thought that was very surprising. And you know what? They get rid of Andrew Chafin, who goes to the Cubs. Again, the Cubs adding more pitching. So, player to be named later. I thought that was a really nice deal by them. But you saw the Diamondbacks trade Robbie Ray. So they made a lot of moves as far as selling, and they didn't really make their team any better. So I thought that was a very interesting route that Arizona did end up going in this trade deadline. The Phillies getting David Phelps, that was a nice deal for them because obviously we know in the NL East, no one has a good bullpen. So the Phillies getting David Phelps makes a ton of sense. 3 players to be named later. But again, players to be named later, that doesn't mean you give up anybody crazy. So it makes the Phillies bullpen better. Phillies have had a tough year so far. So, again, it makes sense. It makes your team better. You didn't overpay. That's the main thing you don't want to do. when you're making these little moves to get these veteran players, whether it's David Phelps or Mike Minor or all these other players that we've talked about, you don't want to give up, too much talent, too many minor league players where you're like, okay, was it really worth it with how much we gave up? So the Blue Jays continue to be buyers by acquiring Ross Stripling. So again, you need more pitching. That's exactly what Toronto did. So again, definitely a lot of moves that happened in this trade deadline, small moves, but again, nobody overpaid. And a lot of contenders made themselves better, and teams that are trying to be contenders also made themselves better. Thinking of Toronto, thinking of San Diego. So definitely is going to be an interesting finish last month of the season. So we'll see how these deals end up working out. Who are the winners and losers? You don't know until these teams play. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like. Again, comment what other kind of videos do you want to see. Obviously, with the Mets having their struggles, we talked about the moves they made, but I really believe it is too little too late. Subscribe to keep up with everything going on the channel. Like I said, basketball videos are coming, football videos are coming, so be sure to stick around for that. And until the next one, be safe, be smart, be healthy, and have a good one, everyone.